I flew out to Chicago, and when we landed there, the concern was mostly about giving me my life back and the vision, which is the main issue here. Because at that point, we had only been able to, I had regained a little bit of vision in my right eye. The truth of the matter, and most people don't believe this, is that I'm completely blind in my left eye, and I'm 75% blind in my right eye. I can only see this much. But you'll never know. It's like, I think I'm good like that. But it's just what happens is the body starts to compensate. Your hearing gets better, and I couldn't smell, and I still can't. So you know, biryani doesn't taste the same, but again, your brain compensates. So what happened was we reached Chicago, and we were out of time. That was the issue, because what happens is the brain starts to swell, and it starts to shut down different parts. So if you have to save anything, you need to go in to release the pressure. Have any of you watched Grey's Anatomy? So you know exactly what I'm talking about. So you have to release the pressure in the brain. So all of this was a whole lot of information for me and my father to take in. So we were just saying yes to it. We were just saying yes to whoever was willing to try. So in retrospect, could he have remembered to show them a picture of what I looked like? Maybe. But it's not something that any of us thought about at the time. So when they opened up, and I have my incision is from here to here, so you have to actually, and this is not to, if anyone gets squeamish, please stop me, I'll tone it down. So is to actually take the face off to reconstruct it. That's how so the kind of swelling you're looking at is huge. And they were rebuilding somebody that they had never seen before. And this is the absolute truth. So they were building their version of Anjali, and who are these guys? And you know something really funny, I mean, at this time, the plastic surgery wing of any hospital is always the best looking. It's really quite depressing. It's like, you know, you wake up, you see all these very hot doctors, and you're just like, oh my god, let's just hope they send me in the same direction. But what happened was, they started, and they couldn't do everything in one shot. I think that's what we expected. I think that's what we all we'd just be like, okay, we'll go somewhere and someone will fix it. But that's when reality started to you know, get in terms of there's only so much we can do. Because at that time we came to terms with the fact that the eyesight was never coming back. I mean, now I've lived with it for these many years, so you know, I'm adjusted. But most of the time, stairs are very, very difficult for me. And so let me just sort of, before I jump ahead, let me get back to when we went into surgery the first time. I would say one of my defining moments was when each surgery would be like over 24 hours, easily. And each time I would sign a release form, that if I don't wake up, it's not their fault. So it's, and at that age, it's a lot. And you know, it would be something that my dad wouldn't want me to sign, but then they won't touch you otherwise. So it was like, okay, fine, sign the form, do your best, let's see. And that's when, you know, a lot of people ask me, like, if God is a big part of my life, that was the time I stopped praying. Because it's not about praying. It's just about finding your strength and your center. And it is purely organic and is purely internal. So I had a doctor called Dr. Pauly. This guy is like 6'5", okay, and his hand is like bigger than even an adult face. So you don't even know how this guy is like performing surgery at all, because he's just a giant. So but he was very kind and very gentle, and at that time my eyesight was still very blurry. And I was generally, and I had also, please remember folks, I had not seen my face yet. So at this point, we haven't even come into the point of like me having seen any kind of change. I just knew that something had happened. That's all. Because we were just trying to get from one day to another, just survive. So what happened was, I remember one of the most defining moments of my life was when I went into surgery the first time, when he said, you know, actually, we can fight 50%, you have to fight the other 50. It's not, there is no, we're going to do our best, and that's all I can say to you. So there's no question. What I loved about being reborn in the United States is that they never lied to me. They never told me it was easy. They told me it was going to be difficult from day one. It was not, you know, I didn't, and they told me it was all, that I was alone. Because I spent the next 2 years alone in the hospital. My dad did come and go, but he had other people to take care of, and this also costed a whole lot of money. So since I was an international patient. So I remember one time, what happens, I mean, when people talk about near-death experiences, I don't succumb to like a lot of the stories that are said out there that they see light and all that kind of stuff. But what does happen is, I remember at one point during my first surgery, I started to wake up when they were not yet finished. And I could feel them clipping away at my head, and the pain just overwhelmed me. And the reason I don't use adjectives to describe the pain is because there aren't any. They just don't exist. So I don't even go there. But what happened was, when I started to wake up, he kept yelling in the background, my doctor, saying, stay awake, you're going to feel tired, you're going to want to fall asleep, don't do it. Because apparently that is when the end starts to come. That's apparently, because you can't physically fall asleep because your eyes are already closed. Right, so where's the question of, but you mentally you feel very, very tired. And I remember, all I wanted to do at that moment is I wanted it to be like, okay, let me just rest. Let me rest for 5 minutes. Then you continue to chop away at whatever you're doing. He's like, no. And they kept yelling in the background. They're like, stay with us, stay away. And that's what I continued to do. And that was not the last surgery at all. I had 3 in total. Each one of them longer than the other. Each one of them pushing me closer to some semblance of a human face that I needed to have if I wanted to continue with my life. So what happened was, like, after the swelling that came with it, all of that was very, very huge. So if I would touch my face, I would touch it from a distance. Now came the part of when my first surgery was finished and I started to actually have to leave the bed, the hospital bed on my own. Which means I had to go to the bathroom and I had to look at the mirror. And no one had told me what I was going to see. So I remember the first time I entered, I went to, and I was attached to all this trolley and a whole bunch of needles and liquids and all that good stuff. So when I went to the restroom and stood up and looked at the mirror, that's when the reality hit. Because I was no longer me. I was nothing like me. I wasn't even somebody else. I was just a terrible version of some semblance of some human being that existed at some point of time in the past. A horrific memory. And I was like, I remember feeling this in the pit of my stomach. I was just like, Anjali, this is not your life. But then the question is, was this even me? And that's when, while I was, there's no question of getting into an existential crisis at that time, I was just like, what am I going to do? There was no, because the people who were cutting into me didn't know what I looked like. And we were already a year and a half into it. So I remember that's when I started to see human frailty. Because you think your parents are amazing, you think your parents can do everything. But then you start to see what they can't do. And that is when it gets very real. I remember there were nights when I would be in the hospital when I would want my father, the strongest, the toughest, the smartest, the best, to stay with me. But he would need to walk away himself. Because it's too hard to see. And that's what fractures a family. I'm sure every one of you, if you've seen any kind of distress like this in your life, it's not very easy to stay together in, everyone in tune for everything when you're half a person when you're fighting for yourself. But we managed. And then I remember after my 3rd surgery, this what you're seeing now is like many years to the date and a whole lot of day makeup. So it's what happened was I had an opportunity. I had still not completed my application to the US. The question was, was I going to study? Was I going to be able to read? Was I going to be able to hear? Was I going to fall down when I went to classes? Was I going to be able to deal with the crowd? If these were all big questions. So it wasn't like, because I would look here, like right now I can see Arvind, I can't see anybody else. But I have to know and hear your voices and know that you're all here and you're looking at me and this is the distance between all of us. And that I can still hold your attention. So what happened after that was my dad and I were walking in Cleveland, I remember, where a cousin of mine lived and I was still recuperating. We suggested I not go back to India at that time, which was actually I think a great decision because it was too much of a way to get over here. It was just people I felt at that time, I'm glad I got resurrected there because the drama that comes with doing that here is a lot. Was perhaps the best decision we made. So then in Cleveland, I remember a lady, this is another defining point. I was walking on the road and a lady with her child was walking towards us and she took her child and walked across the street. People would get afraid of my face. People would not want to be around it. What happened to my life? And that was another question. So my dad is like, I understand if you don't want to go back to university now, if you want to wait for another surgery, if you want to give yourself time. But I'm like, for what? What's going to change? I have to get used to it now. So we walked into a sunglass hut, okay, in Cleveland, and we bought 5 different pairs of fabulous sunglasses, okay, which covered everything. So it made me look a little bit like Diva-esque, but you know, we said, okay, we'll run with it. And we got blue and grey and metallic, and it was awesome. So he's like, are you sure you're going to get through 1.5 years of college with sunglasses? I said, let's try. Let's try. So the thing is, I had not done my essay, and I told him that I still wanted to go to the top, one of the top 10 universities, and the University of Chicago was where I did my undergrad. And the good thing was, I actually got to, they told my story to the admissions officer because I was very late. I was beyond the admissions time. So, but once they heard my story, they came and visited me in the hospital and they interviewed me in person, and they gave me a seat. So I still went to college where I wanted to go to college, where the best of the teachers taught, where all the Nobel laureates come from, which is now actually ranks #1 with Harvard as one of the best MBA schools in the United States, and if not the world. So Raghuram Rajan was also there as a professor when I took it. So this was somebody, I had nothing, and then I was just like, okay, what did it take? I just had to accept what I'd become and still dream of a better tomorrow. So then I finished my undergraduate degree, and that was, I lived in Chicago, then I lived in San Diego. And throughout this time, I think my biggest struggle was with my vision. Because looks are one thing. I'm heavily compartmentalized, but I would say that when it came to looks, I started to detach with who I used to be. Because there's no value there. What am I going to get? I'm just going to hurt and hurt and hurt. And I didn't want to be a bundle of hurt. I just wanted to be